Hello and welcome to the Empowered Couples Podcast, where here you get modern, non-boring relationship advice for you and your partner to communicate like pros, fight smarter, and stay on the same team no matter the challenge that you face. I am one of your hosts, Aaron Freeman.
And I'm Jocelyn Freeman, but you all just know us as the Freemans.
And this episode is about crucible moments in marriage that change things for better or worse.
A crucible moment in marriage. We're not using that in our everyday language, right? It's a pretty big term, but I think it is really catching people's attention when we did a post on this, because a crucible moment in marriage can be a subtle or sometimes obvious decision, situation, a pivotal turning point in the relationship that you might not even realize till afterwards was so significant and important. But here's the thing with a crucible moment. It tests the strength of your bond, of your partnership, and your character, which I know is a big thing to say, but in these crucible moments in marriage, which we're going to describe some examples, your true character is shown in those moments. And that's where we have to be really honest with ourselves and really look at our partnership, because you and I have gotten so much stronger and more united, and I feel a stronger bond from some of the hard crucible moments that we have gone through. And I'm sure we'll share about that later. Anything you'd add about the definition of a crucible moment?
Well, just remembering that it's a critical turning point. And I think it's more known in like the individual motivation space, where it's like, it's not how many times you get knocked down, it's that you get back up. And I think it's very much a similar philosophy.
Yeah.
It's that you'll be faced with something in your marriage, whether a dynamic you kind of created together, but maybe we are talking more about external circumstances and situations and sort of junctures as we go into some examples. Could be around having a newborn, around finances, investments going bad, a turning point in where you live, a turning point with family members. And it's a critical juncture, as you had mentioned in your definition, which was great, that the decision that we make at this time is going to have a bigger impact than just normal day-to-day decisions.
Yeah.
Maybe that we've even had in 5 years. Maybe you only get a couple of crucible moments. Maybe that's another part of the conversation. Like, how many crucible moments do you really get?
Yeah.
And not to scare anyone away from those moments, but you need a couple of the keys that we're going to talk about today to make sure that you do make the decision for things to change for the better rather than the worse. Because again, in these moments, they're not just slight changes. It's like you're either going to really get going faster in the direction you want to go, or you're going to start probably a pretty quick decline.
And we can hear these in our sessions. Like, they might be talking about challenges they're experiencing in the present day, but as we peel back the layers, a lot of times there was some kind of crucible moment in the last 1 to 3 years that didn't ever get processed or sometimes even repaired from. And one example will forever be imprinted in my mind because of how strong the emotion was. So this couple in particular, they were a few years out from having their first newborn baby and starting their family. However, she was still not resolved and healed from the lack of support she received in those newborn days. Right? And think about how critical that experience is in a life and in a marriage, to have your first baby, that first newborn experience. And speaking from my experience, there's a lot going on, right? Emotionally, mentally, physically. And so she felt in that crucible moment where she was the most vulnerable, where she needed the most support, she received the least. And it was something they didn't really process and repair from. And it was something that in that crucible moment, it was leading to for worse. However, of course, that doesn't mean you are stuck there. And that's one thing you want to get from this entire episode, is that even if the crucible moment happened in the past, you can repair from it most of the time, right? If you have that willingness, you have the tools, you have the commitment. So we want there to be hope throughout this, right? This is not a doom and gloom topic and episode, but that situation will forever be imprinted in my mind because of just how significant that crucible moment was for her in the marriage.
Typically, if one partner doesn't make the right decision or head down the right path, as you said, it's going to have a much bigger impact on the other partner. And it can be repaired. And it just made me think, yes, and it's going to take a little bit more. Typically, what it's going to take is a level of rebuilding trust, because in these crucible moments that, you probably faced, and as you listen to this, I mean, think about the past really big turning points, these crucible moments that you've had in your own life and in your marriage.
Yeah.
And those are going to be times that, intentionally or unintentionally, you didn't make the right decision. You probably lost some trust with your partner. So in the repair, it's going to take a little bit longer because you're going to have to also rebuild the trust that was lost.
Well, and also to share personally, and those of you who've been listening a while know that 2022 was like the hardest year ever for us. We're not going to rehash all the reasons why. However, finances was a big topic for us in this crucible moment. And we each made decisions.
Well, we had a 1-year-old too.
And
So I was thinking about this. We had two pretty big crucible moments that happened at the same time that may or may not be common for most people, but that's what led to it feeling so difficult for us.
So we both made some decisions financially in the same year that ended in losses. And we both had to own that. And it was a crucible moment for us. But again, there can also be triumphs in these crucible moments because it is all about the choices made. So we lost a good deal of money that year because of individual decisions we both made, things we said, hey, I want to invest in this. And we handled that crucible moment. What was really significant to us, what did bring up some fear, some anger, all the things, and with a newborn baby, but we became stronger in that. And we're going to talk about some of the keys later in this that allowed us to do that. So remember, in these crucible moments, which whether it's a newborn baby, it's a financial decision, we'll give you some more examples, you can have a win. We got stronger and more united, even though we lost so much money that year. And it brought up fear. We did not turn against each other. We did not let that circumstance tear us apart or build resentment or have us blame each other. Don't you feel like we got stronger and more united from that?
We did, and this was the part I was thinking about as you were talking. The difficult thing about Crucible Moment, it's not that you get the immediate feedback of your decision. You don't get the instant gratification. No, these are much longer term things, and well, going to one of your points later, I know as I looked ahead on our notes, it's that you may not even realize till much later that that was a crucible moment. It's like in reflection.
Yeah.
So I always look for some opportunities to maybe drop a Jordan Peterson idea. I have one coming later, but this reminds me of this story. It's actually a Bible story that he uses to define human beings' life and how things come at us. And it was a story of the Israelites, oddly enough, with what all is going on over in that part of the world now. But they went from being slaves in Egypt, and the whole idea was they were going to get out of that and get to the promised land. And what we kind of miss is that they ended up spending 40 years in the desert. The funny thing, when I was listening to Jordan Peterson, he says, if you know where this desert is located, it wouldn't take you 40 years to walk across it. It's not that big.
4 years?
40.
40 years.
Yeah, they were there for 40 years. And he said, you'd have to be so lost. Like, you would have to literally be walking in circles, like many circles, because it's not that big of an area. And I didn't know that. So, again, taking away the principle for us to even today, when you have a challenge, when you're in a difficult season, when you're at a crucible moment, like them getting out of Egypt as slaves, once they got out, they didn't get into everything being great. They didn't get into paradise. So for us, we always have to go through our own desert.
Yeah.
And the desert is a place where you don't have an answer. There's doubt. There's confusion. You don't have a pathway. It's the unknown. And a lot of times we forget about that in our own growth or being in a marriage. If we face a crucible moment like this and we make even the right decision, whether we know it at the time or not, we might not get the feedback, because one of the things is we're gonna have to get into, well, where do we go from here? Like, I'm not sure what the answer is. And we were definitely there for months.
Yeah.
I don't know if we got out of our desert for probably a year. And here we are today, a little more than a year from that. And it's clear to us that that was a crucible moment. I think we probably knew that in the moment, but we now see that we did take the right steps. And we are more or less in a promised land that we may never have found ourselves in otherwise.
And, a crucible moment in your life can look many different ways, right? So look in your world, maybe right now or recently. So some other ones that stand out from sessions recently is when someone got a really exciting promotion at work. And at first, it's like exciting for the whole family. However, it really starts to affect home life, quality time, the mood, the energy when coming home, because it's a stressful job. This is something we hear a lot about. And then they have more arguments as a couple. Now, this is a crucible moment that you probably don't realize in the moment. It is going to be after the fact. That time is an opportunity. You have a decision. You have a juncture to make when you two sit down and go, okay, I know that this career is important to you, and I'm really excited for the advancements in your passion. However, how can we make home life and work life thrive? And here's the thing, if you don't, and that lasts and lasts and lasts and lasts, that crucible moment can lead to the for worse, not for the better. So this is why, as we get into the keys, so much of this is thinking longer term, not just right now, here's the stress I'm facing, here's why I have to keep going, here's why I got to keep grinding. Okay, what is the long-term impact though? If we keep going this way. Sometimes people are so short-term sighted and are not zooming out and saying, okay, sure, maybe you can withstand this for a month, maybe a year. But if it keeps going and you don't make any changes at this juncture, what is the impact going to be in 3 years from that decision? So look in your world right now as we go into these keys for how to be able to make sure these crucible moments lead to for better rather than for worse. In your world right now, either present day or just in the recent past, what are some crucible moments that you could apply as we go further into this?
You were already on this, so I'll start with the key of you have to think more long-term than short-term. Now, it's the easy way to say it. This was my other opportunity for a Jordan Peterson line. But it's that you have to sacrifice your current self for your future self, which is a really interesting way for me to think of it. Or in this case, you have to sacrifice something, whether we would call it like instant gratification or more immediate gratification or a seeming release or relief from a pain. We have to think, is that in the best interest of the future marriage that we're living into? And yeah, it's a difficult thing to think about. Maybe not difficult to think about, but to be reminded of in these moments. Things feel so rough and sometimes so critical to make the right decision. Take the extra time you need and think about, okay, what are my options? And which one of these is for the betterment of my future self and the future relationship that we're creating. You don't want to make these decisions based on the person you are now, because it doesn't matter. All of this is about growth for the marriage, for yourself. So you really want to think about these decisions for that future version.
And to line up with that, the second key is get clear on your values, which I know that can be overused or people can just kind of throw away, oh, values. No. That is what drives you. That should be what drives you, your values. Now, unfortunately, people lose sight of their core values and instead they get driven by fear, whether that's financial fear or fear I'm going to lose my job in this economy, whatever reasons. Don't let fear drive your decisions. Instead, let it be your core values. And you have to be really honest with yourself. I mean, we said this in our in-person couples workshop, and there were like a few men that were like, whoa, like that hit me, because I said, do not claim that one of your top values and the driver for your work is your family if you are not actually spending time with your family. And we have to have those honest check-ins. I'm not saying that your efforts are not to help provide for your family. However, if it is about them thriving, your relationship, your family thriving, then you would make changes. You would have boundaries with your work, with your time, and being able to transition from work mode to family mode so that you can bring home a good attitude and good energy to your family. So we have to have honest gut check moments. And when we were in that crucible moment where we had that financial loss, which, by the way, that's only one of our crucible moments in our marriage, we got clear again on what do we value. That is what helped us get from fear and instead get focused. Oh, wow, I didn't even realize those were 2 F's. That was unintentional, right? Get out of fear and get focused, and have that be part of what drives your decision together. Because sometimes if you are facing a challenge in your marriage and in your life, you have to sit down and go, we need to make some adjustments here. How do we get more aligned with what we value and put that into action?
And then lastly on that point, what you value is not what you say, it's what you act out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, ideally, what you say and what you act out is the same. Guess where I got that from?
I'm not sure.
Jordan Peterson again.
Oh my gosh, you and Jordan Peterson.
I just listen to him so much. It's about, or it's called being an integrated person, right? So, yeah, just to say that again, what you say can be what you value, but only if it's aligned and matched up to what you act out.
Mm-hmm.
If you're saying a bunch of things, just like you're referencing here, family is most important to me, and yet you're leaving your spouse to do everything for the child and you're never home, and it's these excuses are, oh, well, I'm providing for my family because I care so much about them. It's like, well, that's not what you're acting out.
Mm-hmm.
You might say that, might sound good, might be an excuse, or, in a real sense, we might be, I don't want to say confused, but sometimes we think what we say is what we value. Like even from your own perspective. Like it'd be easy for you to tell me. It's actually easier for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to watch me, you would be able to tell what I value.
That's so true.
Without talking to me. It'd be based on, because it is based on what I'm doing and what I'm acting out.
Yes.
And then I might think to myself, oh yeah, these are my values. But if I'm not working that hard, if I don't make the extra call, if I was a salesperson, for example, if I don't take the extra 15 minutes to, let's say, for me to work on finishing one particular guide, for example, that we have, rather than, eat an extra snack in the kitchen, or for example, at the end of the day, it's like, well, it's about 4, I'll call it good. Or do I say, no, you can go pick up Sky, I'll stay here at the house and finish, this one item. So what I act out, what I value, ideally what I say and what I act out is the same. But if those are not, then it's not necessarily what I say.
I think it's worth noting as well that when you are helping make the decisions through your values, it makes sure you're not just reliant on your feelings. Because you've heard us say this in other episodes, but your feelings can deceive you or have you take action opposite of what you're committed to. And so just as an example, I can even think of another couple that recently, they're in a hard season of their marriage. They are actually trying to determine if they are going to rebuild a new partnership because they've been together for a long time, or if they are going to part ways lovingly and co-parent. And that's a very real decision that we know a lot of couples are facing right now. Now, they had a moment, an important moment with family coming up and a child of theirs. And I'll try to keep it vague so that we, really are keeping privacy. But this was a crucible moment. Even though we aren't fully committed to each other right now, we are lovingly and together trying to determine what's best for us. They still showed up to this family event that was really important for them. And because they thought longer term, and not just about themselves, but also the family members that were involved and how important and significant that was to them. And that is a crucible moment that even if they choose to part ways, which again, we're standing for their marriage, we are standing for them rebuilding it. But even if they lovingly parted ways, they will have more respect and love for each other because of how they handled this crucible moment. And again, the reason I even brought that up is because they acted from their commitment and their values rather than their feelings in that moment, because their feelings could be hurt. I don't want to go. I don't want to be near you. We're even still trying to figure out us. And so that is the power of using your values and what you're committed to guide your decisions in what could be a crucible moment, a turning point where 2 different realities open up. There's a great movie, if some of you have seen it, I think it's called Sliding Doors. And it's about how this girl's life turns out depending on whether she makes the train or doesn't make the train. And it's really fascinating. It's worth a watch. It's a little bit older, but that's what can happen in your life, and you don't even realize it sometimes. You think it's small, you think it's significant, but what if that actually has a big ripple effect and bigger consequences for the better or for the worse in your marriage and in your life?
Yeah, exactly. So the third key here is focusing on and being really honest with yourself about where you need to develop your character.
Get after him with this one, the character.
Oh, no, there's too high of expectations. With the Crucible moment, one of the things that it does show you, in a sense, is where you are lacking. And I don't want you to think of this in the sense of where I'm lacking as not being a good human being. But it shows you that if you're going to go down the path to use this to better yourself and the marriage, that you're not the person to do it. So it is also linked to the sacrifice in the short term for the long term. But it shows you that you are missing some character traits, and you're going to have to develop those along this path of the decision tree that you make before you actually get to the outcome that this crucible moment can lead to. Again, or it can worsen. So you could think about it as, I'm going to be approached with, or it's going to be revealed to me that I need to develop some certain character traits, like resilience.
Integrity,
just really getting together, cleaning up my life, where I've said and made promises and are not keeping them, for example. And if I do that, then that's a part of the crucible moment path towards the betterment. If I think to myself, well, I'm going to keep my own patterns and attitude the way that it is, then that's going to it's going to worsen for you. So this path of the crucible moment has so much to do with the person that you are, and if you're going to develop the traits necessary to grow yourself. That's probably a key differentiator between the paths that you end up going on.
And just to say it in a straight up way, in these crucible moments, a lot of times we just need to also grow up. Right? We need to actually act from our adult self, whereas we can see people who they're at that juncture and they actually are driven more by things that are like immature, frankly, right? And believe me, I can look in my past and see where I handled crucible moments in an immature way, not from my adult, most conscious self. And so, yeah, character is who am I now, but who do I really want to be? Where are there maybe deficiencies where I can be better? And get clear, just like the values, what are the character traits that you do want to embody? What kind of a person do you want to be known as? And look, you can't present yourself one way out in the public world and then be a different way at home to the people who are closest to you. They should actually get your best self. And unfortunately, that's reversed a lot of times. A lot of times it is the outside world getting the better version and the close people, the kids and the spouse getting the worst part. No, they get the best of you. They should get the best of you, your character traits, even though there aren't a lot of people seeing what is happening behind closed doors. That's at least, I want there to be that you see me the same way as anyone outside who thinks I am a certain way, right? Those same aligned character traits. So as we said, this is meant to be an enlightening, hopeful episode. It's going to be honest, right? This is about honesty. You may not be perfect. There might be hard conversations you need to have with yourself, with your partner. But at these critical junctures, these decision points, maybe you're facing a life decision now. Moving, new job, what to do financially, have another child, handle a challenge with the child, work through a challenge in your marriage. Wherever you are, be intentional. Be thoughtful about this. See it as a potentially crucible moment that can change things for better or for worse. So we encourage you, re-listen to this episode, and a great way to make sure that you are strengthening your bond, that you are staying connected no matter what you have going on in life, is to participate in our 30-day couples challenge. We wouldn't promote this if we didn't believe in it. And if we didn't get messages, emails, DMs every day saying we are loving this. And we hear that from men, from women, because no matter how busy you are, you can prioritize each other. with the 30-day couples challenge. So it's starting on the 1st. Go to mycoupleschallenge.com, super easy to sign up, and be able to strengthen your partnership, strengthen your communication, feel more loved, seen, connected with the daily prompts that we send you. So again, it's starting here soon on the 1st. Go to mycoupleschallenge.com. And with that, we are here for you. We're rooting for you to be able to thrive no matter what you are facing. And we will talk to you on the next episode.